was really curious to see how an American would view Canada for Canadian audiences. And I have to say, I was really impressed with the Canadian in-jokes that you had, because I don't think most Americans would know about those.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I made a point of, I wanted to do my research. I wanted it to be something that captured, that went beyond lazy stereotypes.
So how did you first come up with the idea to do comedy specific to different countries?
Following the taping of my last special, which was Quality Time, I had this tour of Asia, and my family was with me part of the time, but I ended up doing 8 or 10 shows over 3 weeks in Asia. And I realized at the end that I had like 20, 25 minutes of material just about Asia. And so I just recorded it. It wasn't super high quality. I just threw it on my YouTube channel. But it made me realize that doing a certain geographic area or a certain culture would be really interesting and a fun assignment for myself. And so obviously I had performed and I visited Canada many times, but so I set off to do, specials in Canada, Spain, and I was also going to do Mexico or Latin America. I wasn't sure, but then the coronavirus hit. And so it was, it was a fun challenge. Stand-up's very much self-assignment, and, Canada is it's a very unique, specific country, and so is Spain. And so it was fun to kind of do research and then turn that into jokes.
Did you have somebody who helped you, like showed you around and told you about the in-jokes?
No, some of it is, I just did research on YouTube, and I did very much the approach of being a tourist, I had spent, obviously I had gone to Montreal for laughs, and I performed in Toronto and Vancouver and Calgary and Edmonton, but I just kind of delved in a little deeper. I knew that I always wanted to get further into understanding the Maritimes, understanding the Acadians, understanding some of those Western cities and Saskatchewan. So it was just something that once the assignment was set, the jokes kind of come. Necessity is really kind of a great motivator.
Did you find that different countries have different senses of humor?
Yeah, some of it is, I think, obviously the Canadian, the North American experience is so similar. And so the task of doing a special about Canada was completely different from Spain, where there might be a language barrier, or I would be, in Spain, I performed in English. So the Spanish audience are people that know English well enough to enjoy a comedy show. And, but I learned that in, doing stand-up for 30 years, that, people appreciate the research you would do. If you're expressing an interest, that buys a lot of goodwill. And so even if you make a mistake or you're, there's things, but it's also fun understanding a country's character and what kind of bothers them or they're sensitive about.
It's a very late night culture in Spain, right? I feel like you guys kind of almost brag about it. You're like, oh, we eat dinner at 11 o'clock. We eat dinner at midnight. We eat dinner when you're having breakfast. I'm like, do any of you have jobs here? How do you do that? But everything starts later in Spain. Meals, shows, democracy. Everything starts later, right? Everything starts later.
This was filmed in Kitchener. Was there any reason you chose Kitchener rather than a bigger city?
Well, some of it was, initially I was going to film in Montreal, and it had to shift because I was presenting at, or I had to attend the Independent Spirit Awards. And, but I was always open to the idea of Kitchener. You know, you perform in a city, no matter where it is in the world. And you know, for me, it's like, I look at it as places where I can play or places where it's work. And so for Kitchener, it's, you know, it's Ontario, it's outside of Toronto, it's a large enough town where it has its own identity. And it was something that I kind of connected the last time I performed there. So I was like, yeah, you know, Kitchener, and it's a nice theater. So I was like, you know, you want it to feel like a special, because what I learned in doing the Asian American special was that there's a certain level of production value that you need in the special.
Now, you had a very enthusiastic reception in Kitchener. Did you find that Canadian audiences are any different from American audiences?
Well, generally, Canadians are a better audience. I think that there is, you know, there's something about, maybe it's because there's so many Canadians, so many comedians that are Canadian, but there's an appreciation, you know, SCTV, there's this, there's a rich comedy culture in Canada. And I just feel like I get a connection with Canadians also because there's, you know, as a Midwesterner, it's, there's something about Canadians that doesn't feel like New Yorkers feel, even though I live in New York, the Northeast of the US feels more foreign to me than being in Calgary or Winnipeg.
I know you mentioned Latin America, Mexico. Are there any other countries that you'd like to visit to do specials for?
I mean, I would love to do, I would love to do India. I would love to do the Middle East, Australia, you know, South Africa. It's, you know, it's places I've performed where I inadvertently came up with some material, but I would love the assignment to make it, you know, a full special. You know, the weird thing is like, it's not just about creating jokes. It's about, you know, there's a cultural nuance with each country, you know, so like, I can joke around about Canadians being polite, but if it was all tertiary kind of stereotypes, the Canadian audience wouldn't appreciate it. You know what I mean? Or if I was in Spain and I was not aware of the fact that the Spanish Civil War is still a sensitive topic, or that you know, the separatists in Catalan and Basque, if I wasn't aware of those things, I think the Spaniards would bristle. So it's like there is some research that goes into it that makes it work.
Definitely. I could tell you've done a lot of research, and I was thinking it must be pretty tricky to make your comedy specific.
Yeah, I mean, some of it is, it's so fun, but like, again, you know, if you do some research, people will appreciate the effort you've made. And I, you know, even my first stand-up appearance, I remember I did a lot of material, this is like 100 years ago, but I did a lot of material about my dad. And I remember thinking, uh-oh, he's gonna be mad. But he actually appreciated the fact that it was about him. You know what I mean? It's, you know, he didn't love all the messages, but he liked the fact that it was an homage or a tribute.
Was there anything else you noticed about Canada that didn't make it into the special?
Oh, there's innumerable things. There's tons of things. You know, that's the thing. It's like you're never ready or done with a special. It's just you have to decide to do it. I didn't get to go to Newfoundland. There was that huge snowstorm, so the trip was canceled. But So I would love to go there. I would love to go to the Northwest Territories. There's a lot of, I mean, it's an enormous country, and there's many parts that I haven't been to, and then I would love to, like Quebec City. I'd love to go to Quebec City, and but it's yeah. There's so many things that I want to do.
Which country so far did you feel that you had the most in common with?
I think Canada. I think that we're all North Americans, so it's there is a familiarity and culturally, if you look at, it's weird with international shows. For me, I feel a more common connection with say Northern Europeans or Spaniards, Spaniards that speak English as a second language than I do with British audiences, because it's the British audiences have such a unique, different experience than, say, a North American or even a Spaniard who's spent time in America or consumed a bunch of American entertainment.
I do feel like the map of Canada looks unfinished. It's so detailed on the East Coast, and then it's just wide open spaces. It's almost like someone was working on it and they fell asleep. And his boss comes over and is like, "Are you done?" "What? Yeah, I just got to put some names in Prince Edward Island and Nova Scotia." "Oh, so much land." "Newfoundland." The boss is like, "Are you done?" Yeah, I'm done. Columbia, that's a country, all right. British Columbia. I've been to British Columbia. It's not very British or Columbian. Vancouver was like a rainy Seattle. Spent a week in Vancouver. Somehow it rained for 2 weeks.
Different countries have handled the pandemic in different ways. Do you think that would be a source of comedy in the future?
Eventually, but it's weird because obviously America is really, struggling, right? And I think that there is a self-awareness that you have to embrace, but I don't think America is to the point where they realize people might intuitively think it's a disaster, but being able to laugh about it, I don't know, not yet, because there's, people's lives and, people's income, a lot of things are tied to it. So that step to self-awareness where it's like, we really messed this up, is something that I think it's going to take a beat for Americans to get to.
Now, what's lockdown been like for you personally? Has it been a nice break to spend with your family, or are you itching to get back to work?
It changes, right? It changes week to week. I would say the first couple weeks or month, it was this nice forced hiatus. And then the next couple months, it was a little bit of stir crazy. And now there's an appreciation for the fact that I can do the lockdown the way I'm doing it, or safely distance my family during this pandemic. But I don't know if any of us are really aware of the psychological consequences of doing this. Do you know what I mean? Like, I like to think I haven't lost my mind, but I'm sure there were times when I've gone crazy.
What's the first thing you want to do when lockdown is totally done?
I think travel internationally. I love other cultures, and I love just wandering streets and kind of being the tourist. I love doing stuff like that. It feels like that's a long way off.
And what's next for you in terms of work? I think I saw on IMDb that you have a movie in pre-production.
Yeah, there's a couple things. I mean, if they happen, you know, it's or when they happen. But one of the things that is supposedly going to happen is I'll play Rob Ford in a docuseries about Rob Ford. So I don't know, but I don't know when that's going to happen or if it's going to happen. I mean, we live in interesting times where it wouldn't surprise me if you know, it was a couple of years before we could really shoot a TV show or a movie like we normally do.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for choosing Canada. I laughed out loud so many times during this special. And thank you so much for chatting to me today.
Appreciate it. Thank you.